Chapter 2762. Qianren to the left. Luo Qingtong's voice rang out in Yi Qianxian's mind. He instinctively shifted to the left. He had absolute faith in Luo Qingtong. Before he knew what she was going to do, his body reacted first, and he teleported over. Boom! Yi Qianxian had just moved to the left, when an attack from Emperor Tiandu's consciousness slammed into where he had been standing and extended to the right. If Yi Qianxian had been there, he would have had to take the attack head-on. This was because Emperor Tiandu's consciousness clone had appeared on his left. However, because of Luo Qingtong's warning, Yi Qianxian didn't take the attack head-on. Instead, he stood in front of Emperor Tiandu's consciousness clone. The moment the latter appeared, it was as if he had directly collided with Yi Qianren and was sent flying with a single move. If not for the fact that he couldn't use his full strength, Yi Qianxian would have been able to scatter Emperor Tiandu's consciousness clone with this move. Qingtong. Yi Qianxian's eyes flashed as his voice rang out in Luo Qingtong's mind. You can see his attack? His eyes were burning. Yi Qianxian hadn't expected Luo Qingtong to be able to see through Emperor Tiandu's attack. Even he couldn't see through Emperor Tiandu's attack, but Luo Qingtong could? Luo Qingtong shook her head at Yi Qianxian's words. It's not that I can see it, it's that I can foresee it. Luo Qingtong's lips quirked. She had to thank the new eye technique she'd activated on the abandoned continent Foresight. The power of Luo Qingtong's eye technique was linked to her strength and mental strength. With her current strength, it was impossible for her to see through Emperor Tiandu's attacks. However, Luo Qingtong's latest pupil technique, Foresight, allowed her to see what happened in the next second that was related to her. Under such circumstances, Emperor Tiandu's attack was naturally in her eyes. Although he couldn't open up 3D mode like his eyes and analyze the Tiandu Emperor's attack power, range, weakness, speed, and so on clearly, he could counterattack and counterattack. But for Yi Qianxian, as long as he was given a hint, with his strength, he would definitely not lose to the other party. It was a pity that the number of times she could foresee was limited. After all, it consumed too much mental power. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong would have cooperated with Yi Qianxian and played him to death. The emperor's expression instantly changed after seeing Yi Qianxian's attack. He didn't expect Yi Qianxian to be so coincidental. Yi Qianxian dodged his attack a second before it was about to hit him. Not only that, Yi Qianxian even appeared right where he was about to go. Was this a coincidence? Emperor Tiandu's expression was grave. He was very wary of this son of his. Yi Qianxian had been different from ordinary people since he was young. With the heavenly veins body, his strength was constantly growing. Emperor Tiandu didn't even know when his son had become strong enough to fight against him. If it weren't for the hidden dangers behind his heavenly veins body, Emperor Tiandu didn't know how much Yi Qianxian could have grown. Such a son was both a help and a hidden danger. Unfortunately, he couldn't control him. Chapter 2763. Boom! His figure once again charged towards Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. However, under Luo Qingtong's foresight, he was no longer able to gain any advantage. Bang! Another attack slammed into him, and his figure was scattered once again. The projection of the divine will incarnation faded a lot. After all, this power was previously sealed in his spiritual artifact. After being stimulated by Situme and the others, it condensed and condensed. Now that it had been scattered by Yi Qianxian, the power within had naturally dissipated. When the power of his projection completely dissipated, his divine will incarnation would also completely disappear. As Emperor Tiandu thought of this, his expression became even more gloomy. He looked in Yi Qianxian's direction and felt that all of this was not so simple. The first time could be said to be a coincidence, but why was he able to predict his attack and actions the second time? For someone like Emperor Tiandu, he would not wait until the third time to react. His gaze was fixed on Luo Qingtong. He felt that all of this was related to her. One had to know that Yi Qianren didn't manage to escape from his first attack. This meant that it was not him. It was this young man, Luo Qingtong's younger brother. Emperor Tiandu's gaze was fixed on Luo Qingtong in shock and disbelief. The latter only smiled sweetly at him, then raised her hand and gave him the middle finger. Her meaning was very obvious. How was it Did you feel good? Luo Qingtong's middle finger said silently. Emperor Tiandu did not know what Luo Qingtong meant by giving him the middle finger, but when he thought of how Luo Qingtong had scolded him earlier, he knew that this was not a good sign. Immediately his eyes darkened. Bastard! His voice was cold as he charged towards Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian again. This time, his target was Luo Qingtong. Regardless of whether she was the culprit or not, Emperor Tiandu could not let Luo Qingtong off, just based on her contempt for him. However, Luo Qingtong was behind Yi Qianxian, and the man's figure was always the first to block her. Coupled with Luo Qingtong's foresight, Emperor Tiandu could not deal with Luo Qingtong at all. Instead, Yi Qianxian had seized the opportunity to scatter his figure twice in a row. Emperor Tiandu's face finally changed when he saw that his figure was becoming fainter and fainter. He could no longer maintain his divine will incarnation. He was certain that Luo Qingtong had seen through his attack. A young man at the Exalt realm was actually able to see through his attack. This was simply a fantasy story. But now this fantastical thing had happened in front of him. The Tiandu Emperor had no choice but to believe it. Good. Good. You're very good. Emperor Tiandu's face was cold. He looked coldly at Luo Qingtong behind Yi Qianming, and then with a boom, his figure completely exploded in an instant. A terrifying violent force raged in an instant and blasted towards Yi Qianming. At the same time, a vortex silently appeared where Luo Qingtong was and sucked her in. If you want to find her, go back to Tiandu. Emperor Tiandu's cold voice came from the depths of the vortex. Chapter 2764. Once Luo Qingtong was transported to Tiandu, she would fall into the hands of the Emperor of Tiandu, and her identity might be exposed. If the Emperor of Tiandu knew that she was Luo Qingtong, he would not let her go and use her to threaten Yi Qianming. How could Luo Qingtong let such a thing happen? Seeing that the huge whirlpool was about to take her back to Heaven Capital, Luo Qingtong slashed out with the life and death yin-yang sword in her hand. The power of life and death contained in her life and death sword was the most powerful invisible force in the world. Although the Emperor of Tiandu was powerful and Luo Qingtong could not break the huge vortex, she could still leave a mark on it. This was enough for Luo Qingtong. Boom! The crimson pupils in her eyes glowed brightly as she pushed her eye technique to its strongest level. She saw it. Luo Qingtong's eyes shone brightly. Following the small mark left by her life and death sword, Luo Qingtong saw a point to escape from this huge vortex. Boom! Her figure slammed into that point in an instant. You overestimate yourself. The Emperor of Tiandu's voice was cold. He sat in the golden palace outside the clouds and watched as Luo Qingtong's figure was about to escape from the vortex. He raised his hand, and with a boom, a huge spiritual hand shot out from the depths of the vortex and grabbed at Luo Qingtong. This was because this huge vortex was connected to the Emperor of Tiandu's body. Unless Luo Qingtong had enough strength to resist the Emperor of Tiandu, she would not be able to leave even if she could see through this vortex. The Emperor of Tiandu had countless ways to capture her. Seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly shrank. At this time, a huge skeleton floated in the starry sky where the abandoned continent had collapsed. There were two small dots on its skeleton, appearing so inconspicuous and small. One was pink, the other was white. Aya, you little dumpling. Why did it take you so long to absorb the power of Torch Dragon's primordial core? We still have to find Master. Wake up. Little Pig stood beside Xiao Tuanzi, its four little hooves pacing on the skeleton with all its might. Only the heavens knew that Xiao Tuanzi would wake up after absorbing the power of the Torch Dragon's Yuan Dan. By then it would be able to get a share of the loot. In the end, after the little ball absorbed the energy, it fell into a deeper sleep. Not only that, his body seemed to be glued to the Torch Dragon's skeleton. Since Little Pig couldn't take it away, he couldn't leave either. Because the entire Torch Dragon skeleton seemed to be enveloped by an invisible force, Little Pig couldn't leave at all. What the hell was this little dumpling doing? Little Pig was anxious to death. It could sense that Luo Qingtong seemed to be encountering some danger. This was the unique connection between contracted beasts and their masters, allowing them to sense Luo Qingtong's danger at the first moment. Therefore, Little Pig jumped onto Tuanzi's body while squealing. It raised its little hoof and began to slap Tuanzi. "Hey, you little brat, wake up. Master is in danger." As it said this, it suddenly felt that the huge torch dragon skeleton under its body was faintly trembling. Then, the trembling became more and more frequent. In the next second. Chapter 2765. Boom! The torch dragon skeleton shattered into countless fragments in an instant. A ball of blazing light instantly enveloped Little Pig and Xiao Tuanzi. Seeing the changes in Xiao Tuanzi, Little Pig was dumbfounded. "Damn! You actually advanced in rank. No wonder you couldn't wake up. Let's go to Master." As Little Pig spoke, Xiao Tuanzi, whose body had doubled in size, and the tuft of hair on his head had turned into two, he immediately chirped. Then with a swoosh, their figures disappeared from the starry sky and appeared beside Luo Qingtong. This was the space shuttle technique that Xiao Tuanzi had comprehended after advancing. It was a sector beast. It could shuttle through tens of thousands of spaces like a fish in water, unhindered by any force. At this moment, Luo Qingtong was looking at the giant spiritual energy hand that Emperor Tiandu had sent over. Her eyes were indescribably solemn. Then with a boom, she felt a ray of light suddenly blossom beside her. Then Little Pig and Xiao Tuanzi appeared in front of her. "Let's go, Master. Let's leave this place immediately," Little Pig said in Luo Qingtong's mind. "Xiao Tuanzi has advanced to the growth stage. The sector beast space can be opened, and we can be instantly transferred back to the true Spill continent. Let's leave this place immediately." Little Pig also noticed the giant palm that Emperor Tiandu had sent over. F***CK, this is too shameless. The opponent's strength was many levels higher than the Sky Martial realm. He actually dared to attack Luo Qingtong, who was only at the Purple Venerable realm. Where was his face? Damn! Little Pig's voice sounded. Luo Qingtong also saw him and Xiao Tuanzi. Knowing that Xiao Tuanzi had regained its strength and had advanced to the growth stage, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed sharply. She could now open the sector beast space to return to the true Spill continent. She looked at the giant spiritual energy hand that was rushing towards her, and said with a murderous look in her eyes, "Okay. Let's go." As she spoke, her figure was enveloped in the light of Xiao Tuanzi and Little Pig. At the same time, the light in Luo Qingtong's eyes was abnormally cold and evil. "Endless time, eternal river open." As soon as Luo Qingtong shouted, an extremely dazzling river of time and space unfurled within her body. Luo Qingtong's consciousness appeared in it. Without hesitation, she pointed a finger at the depths of the galaxy, at the domineering woman in blood-red armor at the end of the line. Boom! Luo Qingtong's gaze changed at once. Her gaze instantly became incomparably bloodthirsty, cold, and domineering. The crimson light in the depths of his eyes was like countless rivers of blood, cleansing and flowing elegantly. "Trying to kill me?" Looking at the giant spiritual energy hand that was rushing towards her, Luo Qingtong's gaze had completely changed. It was incomparably dangerous. The two evil blood bracelets on her hands, which had been motionless after the eruption, instantly trembled violently, as if they had gone crazy after sensing her aura. Streaks of crimson light crazily flowed from the bracelets, as if they were fiercely narrating something. That buzzing tremor was like a wail of anguish. "I know, I don't blame you." Chapter 2766. These were the injuries they'd suffered in order to protect her back then. If that wasn't the case with their power, what could that spiritual energy palm be compared to them? It would be nothing more than a speck of light. The coldness in Luo Qingtong's eyes was surging and flowing in her eyes like a substance. "You've done your best. Don't blame yourselves. Protect this lord's body well. In the future, I will restore your glory." As Luo Qingtong spoke, her wrist shook violently. In an instant, an extremely violent and vast power, that was countless times stronger than the Emperor of Tiandu's attack, erupted from her body. Boom! She threw a punch forward. Tyrant fist of heaven and earth. This punch was incomparable to the one Luo Qingtong had used against Situmeer. As this punch blasted out, an earth-shattering power erupted from Luo Qingtong's fists. With a boom, the spirit chi palm of the Emperor of Tiandu was shattered. Not only that, but the Emperor of Tiandu, who was far above the Golden Palace of Tiandu, seemed to have been attacked by something. With a boom, his body shook violently. Then in the next second, his figure flew backward. Poof! His body slammed into the Nine Dragons' golden chair behind him and fell to the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He had been injured by that power through the connection between him and his divine will incarnation. What? The Emperor of Tiandu was shocked. He looked in the direction of the void in front of him, and the scene revealed by the giant vortex. He saw that Luo Qingtong's figure had disappeared into it. The other party had actually broken through his attack and shattered his spirit energy palm. Not only that, but she had also injured him through his own attack. The Emperor of Tiandu was shocked and bewildered. The power just now was so domineering and destructive. Just thinking about it made him tremble. If it wasn't for the fact that they were separated by a great distance, and were separated by layers of space, that strike from before would have been sufficient to kill him. What was going on? It was impossible for a young man at the Exalt realm to display such strength. The Emperor of Tiandu's eyes were solemn. He vaguely remembered that when the punch was thrown, the figure of a woman in blood-red armor seemed to appear behind the man. Could it be that the other party had intervened in the battle between him and that young man and rescued him? If that was the case, the other party's identity was definitely not ordinary. That young man was probably not Luo Qingtong's younger brother. If not for this, how could he have met someone like the woman in the blood-red armor, who was born in the 9-star sector and came from a low-level continent? This young man must be a friend that Yi Qianxian had met on the way here. Because he knew about his relationship with Luo Qingtong, he deliberately said that he was Luo Qingtong's younger brother to mock him. Thinking of this, the Emperor of Tiandu's face suddenly turned ugly. At this moment, Yi Qianxian had broken through the power of the giant vortex and rushed in. His figure had just been blocked by the power of the Emperor of Tiandu's divine will incarnation, so he was a moment slower. Chapter 2767. All the strength in his body instantly gathered without any care, and it looked like it was about to burst out in the next second. At this moment, a squawking sound appeared in his mind. It was the little pig's voice. "Ao ao ao, Master told me to tell you that she's fine. We've returned to the true Spill continent. Don't worry." As the little pig's voice sounded, the destructive light in Yi Qianxian's eyes instantly dimmed. His eyes swept around the scene, and soon his heart calmed down. There was no other reason. At this moment, there was still the residual power of the heaven and earth tyrant fist that Luo Qingtong had just blasted out. Yi Qianxian sensed it, and the crazed look in his eyes instantly calmed down. That woman hadn't lied to him. She was really fine. Yi Qianxian had never experienced such great ups and downs. In order to increase his strength faster, and in order to find a way to cure his heavenly pulse body, he had experienced countless life and death situations. However, there had never been a moment like this where his breathing and heart seemed to have stopped. Yi Qianxian had once thought that he loved Luo Qingtong as much as his life, but at this moment, he knew that Luo Qingtong was more than just his life. She was his entire soul, and the meaning of his life. Without the girl, he was nothing. Yi Qianxian didn't doubt that if Luo Qingtong was really captured by the Sky Capital and suffered some kind of torture, he would definitely go crazy. At that time, even if the world was dyed in blood, he would point his sword at the Sky Capital and destroy the heavens and earth. He wouldn't hesitate in the slightest. Qingtong. Yi Qianxian fiercely clenched his hands. His heart was finally at ease. At this moment, the Sky Capital on the other side had also regained his composure. He took a deep breath, climbed up from the ground and coldly ordered, "Immediately send an order to the powerhouses of the four sides. Have them immediately rush to the 6-star flying star field and bring Yi Qianxian back." Yes, voices of agreement could be heard from the void. In the next second, there was a boom, and in the starry sky where the abandoned continent was located, figures instantly appeared. These were the powerhouses of the Sky Capital, who were relatively close to this place. After receiving the Sky Capital's voice transmission, they immediately locked onto the location and directly transmitted over. There were also powerhouses who appeared in the flying star field one after another, rushing in this direction at an extremely fast speed. They could feel the extremely powerful and terrifying power coming from the starry sky all around them. In an instant, all the forces standing in the distance of the abandoned continent were all shocked. Oh my God, what the hell is going on? Just now the powerful and terrifying aura was not enough. Now the auras of so many Sky Martial Realm experts appeared. Was this world a fantasy? One had to know that a Sky Martial Realm expert was already beyond their imagination. Not to mention that there were more than a dozen. Everyone thought that the appearance of Situme and the others was already the pinnacle of their lives. But now more and more terrifying powers appeared, and in an instant, they thought that they were dreaming. The crowd trembled as they looked at the figures in the starry sky, and their faces showed that they were on the verge of fainting. Chapter 2768. While everyone was shocked and trembling, Yi Qianming raised his hand and took out a black underworld summoning token from his sleeve. Originally, he wanted to wait for some time to prepare before revealing them in front of everyone. This way, he would have a greater advantage when dealing with Tiandu. But there was no need for that now. Yi Qianming's expression was indifferent as he crushed the black underworld summoning token in his hand. He would not give Tiandu any chance to restrain him and hurt Luo Qingtong. It was enough to make that mistake once. Fortunately, that woman was powerful, and not ordinary people could compare to her. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yi Qianming's body turned cold at the thought of it. He was too afraid of losing Luo Qingtong. Today's mistake could not happen again. Boom! Yi Qianming crushed the black underworld summoning token in his hand. In an instant, the clouds moved in all directions. Many of the experts from Onyx Palace received his order to gather. Almost in an instant, they quickly gathered here. Streaks of terrifying energy appeared in the flying star field one after another, heading toward where Yi Qianming was at an extremely fast speed. Boom boom boom. Feeling the terrifying power of the Sky Martial Realm, the expressions of the people in the distance were simply indescribable. In particular, the owners of these auras all gathered in Yi Qianming's direction. They stood respectfully behind him and knelt down to salute him. Everyone was about to go crazy when they saw this. What the hell was going on? Could it be that this white jade masked man was not only a terrifying expert who had most likely surpassed the Sky Martial Realm, but also the master of a super force? Everyone was shocked. At this moment, a person from the 4-star region suddenly raised his hand and pointed in the direction of Yi Qianming and the others. He said anxiously, "Black Underworld Palace. They are from Black Underworld Palace." As soon as his voice came out, everyone was stunned. Then someone sucked in a deep breath and exclaimed, "Onyx Palace? They are from Black Underworld Palace?" The Black Underworld Palace that once created countless legends in the Star region, and then suddenly disappeared. Didn't you say that they had already been disbanded? No. We heard that they had been annihilated. There are also some who say that they experienced internal strife and were completely destroyed. Everyone was shocked as they looked in the direction of Yi Qianming's group. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Onyx Palace, the Lord of the Dark Abyss. Back in the countless star fields, he was an existence that no one dared to challenge just by hearing his name. Legend had it that the Lord of the Dark Abyss came from an extraterrestrial galaxy that was a place beyond their reach. For the rest of his life, it would be difficult for him to break through the barrier to the other side. But now they had appeared here. Could it be that the terrifying cultivators of the Sky Martial Realm, who came to fight against the Lord of the Dark Abyss, also came from the outer celestial region? Everyone was shocked as they looked at the cultivators of Heaven Capital opposite Yi Qianming. When the experts from Onyx Palace appeared, the latter and the others' faces turned ugly. "Your Highness, you are the Lord of the Dark Abyss." Situmeyer looked at Yi Qianming with a pale face. Even in Divine Capital, the Lord of the Onyx Underworld was a fearsome existence. The Onyx Palace was even more terrifying. They had guessed his identity countless times, but they did not expect him to be Yi Qianming. It was His Highness. When the Lord of the Dark Abyss became famous, His Highness was only 8 years old. Chapter 2769. Situmei and the others didn't dare to imagine how frightening Yi Qianming's strength was before. Perhaps what they thought of as His Highness's strength was only what the other party was willing to show them. Thinking of the many families in Tiandu who were dreaming of controlling Yi Qianming, Situmei's face revealed an extremely bitter smile. If His Highness's strength hadn't increased due to the problem with his meridians, even if all the experts in Tiandu worked together, they wouldn't be able to shake him in the slightest. Such a powerful and frightening man only had a girl from a low-level continent in his heart. Situmei had never put Luo Qingtong in her eyes, and thought that she was trash who didn't deserve Yi Qianming at all. But at this moment, the jealousy and envy in her eyes were indescribable, and completely drowned her. Why was that woman called Luo Qingtong so lucky? Why? While Situmei's heart was filled with jealousy and hatred, Luo Qingtong's figure appeared in a distant and remote corner of the star field. Bang! Luo Qingtong's figure and Little Pig's figure fiercely smashed into a high-level continent. Then, with a bang, Xiao Tuanzi's figure fell from mid-air and landed on Little Pig's body, causing the latter to cry out in pain. Oh my god! Where are you putting your buttocks at, you bastard? My face! Ow ow ow! Little Pig scrambled to get away from Xiao Tuanzi's butt. After Xiao Tuanzi advanced, her body grew bigger. Previously, Little Pig was still able to carry her on his back. It was already good enough that he didn't crush her to death. She suddenly became so fat because she ate too much of the inner core's energy. It was a pity that he worked so hard to find power for her, and wanted to get a share of it. In the end, not to mention residue, she didn't even have a bit of air. Little Pig thought of the grievances in his heart. He felt that he had suffered a great loss and sacrificed a lot. He crawled out from under Xiao Tuanzi's body, and saw Luo Qingtong lying beside him with her eyes closed. She didn't move at all. Wah! No way! Master, are you okay? Wake up quickly! Little Pig hopped in front of Luo Qingtong, and raised his little hoof to slap at Luo Qingtong's face. However, before his hoof could touch Luo Qingtong, the latter's eyes instantly opened. His blood-red eyes were sharp and cold, extraordinary and domineering, as if he was the king of the heavens. Seeing this, the Little Pig immediately retracted its hoof, and didn't dare to be impudent anymore. Oh my god! Little Pig's heart thumping. Luo Qingtong's consciousness. Or His Highness. Just as it was thinking, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly changed. Then, she shook her head and sat up slowly. S to testus. 2s? Her as she remembered that she had used the power of her previous life when she left. Did she lose her memory again? Luo Qingtong's brows furrowed. Why do I lose my memories every time I use the power from my previous life? Is it because the other party is too strong? Luo Qingtong still remembered the figure of the woman in blood-red armor she saw in the River of Stars. She was domineering, enchanting, and one in a million. Chapter 2770. She remembered now. The statue in the Crimson City. That blood-red statue was exactly the same as the figure of the woman in blood-red armor he had seen in the River of Stars. Except for that face. Luo Qingtong couldn't see the face of the statue in the Crimson City clearly. But apart from that, their clothes and accessories were exactly the same. Luo Qingtong only saw the crimson-armored woman in the land of the deceased immortals, and didn't pay much attention to her. Now that she activated the power of the River of Stars again, she suddenly realized that the similarities between the two were almost complete. Could it be that the crimson statue in the Crimson City was her previous life? The owner of the majestic Crimson City? That primordial beast, the master of the Torch Dragon? It was her? Her previous life? Luo Qingtong was shocked beyond words. At this moment, Little Pig's voice suddenly rang out. Damn! Where is this place? You fat dumpling, where the hell did you take us? This isn't the true Spill continent. Little Pig's words instantly interrupted Luo Qingtong's train of thought. She covered her head, and tilted half of her body to look around. Just as she was about to spread out her divine sense, she felt a sharp pain in her head. At the same time, her vision turned black, and she almost fell to the side. Fortunately, Little Pig rushed over and supported her with his short and fat body. Hey master, are you okay? Little Pig was startled by Luo Qingtong's actions. Was Luo Qingtong alright? What if she was injured in the battle with the Emperor of Sky Capital? That would be the end of her. The Emperor of Sky Capital was so powerful. If Luo Qingtong was injured by him, there was no way for her to expel his power. At that time, Luo Qingtong could only slowly be invaded by his power and die, just like those people in the land of the deceased immortals who were attacked and killed by Flowing Light's power. As Little Pig thought of this, he suddenly became anxious. And beside it, the little fatty also crawled up from the ground and rolled in front of Luo Qingtong like a big ball of fur. It chirped anxiously at her, its worry written all over its face. I'm fine. Luo Qingtong calmed down for a while and patted their heads. She had overexerted her power. When she was in the Emperor of Sky Capital's teleportation vortex, Luo Qingtong almost pushed her eye technique to the limit in order to find the exit point. Her mental power was completely exhausted, so it was normal for her to feel dizzy and blind. Luo Qingtong checked the power in her body. She realized that not only was her mental strength depleted, but even the strength in her body was depleted in an instant. Damn it! The corner of Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. She was sucked dry after using the power of her previous life. However, she didn't regret in her heart. Power was meant to be used. Otherwise, why would she work so hard to become stronger? The Emperor of Sky Capital's attitude was arrogant and lofty. He wanted to use her to threaten Yi Qianxian and capture her back to Sky Capital. How could Luo Qingtong suffer such a loss? Even if she broke all the bones in her body, she would peel off a layer of his skin. Chapter 2771. Luo Qingtong checked her body and found that it was the same as when she used her previous life's strength in the land of the fallen immortals. She had only temporarily lost her strength, so she didn't care too much about it. With her current strength, even if she didn't use her strength, her physical strength alone was enough to blow up anyone below the Venerable Realm. Not to mention, she also had the life and death duality sword in her hand. With the sharpness of the sword, even if Luo Qingtong couldn't stimulate the life and death duality sword, it was enough to deal with powerhouses below the Yellow Venerable Realm. Therefore, Luo Qingtong wasn't worried that she would encounter danger. Moreover, she wasn't the same person who didn't know anything when she had just lost her strength. Luo Qingtong had already learned how to draw energy into her body through the Enlightenment Spirit Pill in Skywind Inscription City. As long as she wanted to, she could quickly restore her strength. However, Luo Qingtong wasn't in a hurry. The process of losing her power this time might be a good training for her. It would allow her to condense her strength from scratch and deepen her understanding of her strength and realm. Luo Qingtong's strength had risen too quickly when she was on the abandoned continent. In the spiritual energy sea of the abyss, her strength had risen to the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm. Although her comprehension of her realm had reached that level, it wasn't deep enough. Therefore, she prepared to slowly condense her strength and restore her strength. She wouldn't do it so quickly, so as to solidify her strength and foundation. Therefore, after thinking about it, Luo Qingtong felt that this loss of strength might be a good opportunity. Of course, this would have to wait until she determined where she was. If this was a very dangerous place, then she would pretend that she hadn't said anything and directly restore her strength. No matter how important it was to lay a foundation, it wasn't more important than her own life, right? Luo Qingtong suddenly asked Little Pig, "Can you ask Little Tuanzi where this place is, and how far is it from the True Spill continent?" Luo Qingtong guessed that Little Tuanzi originally wanted to send them back to the True Spill continent. This place should be on their way back to the True Spill continent. Perhaps they weren't far from the True Spill continent. As Luo Qingtong said this, Little Pig immediately turned to Little Tuanzi and asked. The two little fellows whispered for a while. Then, Little Pig said to Luo Qingtong, "This guy said that this place is very close to the Desolate Star region. It's not far from the edge. We should be in a high-level continent in a nearby 9-star domain," Yi Zichen said. "As long as we follow the path we'll be able to return to the True Spill continent." As Little Pig spoke to hear, he glared at Xiao Tuanzi and said, As for Xiao Tuanzi, he doesn't seem strong enough to return to the true Spill continent. Little pig. Tuan. This way, it would be able to regain its strength. Little Pig's face was gloomy. Luo Qingtong listened to Little Pig's answer and immediately understood what was going on. Most likely, she had borrowed Little Tuanzi's strength to open the Starry Sky River. Because of this, Little Tuanzi didn't have enough strength and couldn't return to the true Spill continent. Chapter 2772. With that in mind, Luo Qingtong said to Little Pig, "Okay, since that's the case, let's go back. Let Little Furball show us the way." This little guy didn't use the power of the blood-robed armored woman because of her this time. It seemed that its promotion and improvement this time had increased its power a lot. Luo Qingtong thought as she flew out and asked Little Furball about its power this time. After asking, she found out that Little Furball's sector beast space could directly breed a world that belonged to Luo Qingtong. This world was different from the ordinary continents. It was a unique world that contained Little Furball's sector beast power. Let's put it this way. If Xiao Tuanzi's sector beast ability was of the gold element, then other than being able to lend its ability to Luo Qingtong, it could also create a unique world that contained the gold element law. This world only existed in Little Furball's consciousness. Through the growth of its strength, that piece of land would eventually perfectly evolve into a complete world. And the master of that world would be Luo Qingtong. In that world, Luo Qingtong's orders were everything. She was the master. As Little Furball's power grew, unique creatures that contained the law of gold would be bred there. These creatures would all listen to Luo Qingtong's orders and could fight with her summons. Not only that, but Luo Qingtong could also let people enter the world that she owned. The people inside could directly absorb the power of the Great Path of Gold if they cultivated there. This allowed them to have a gold soul seal and cultivate at an extremely fast speed. It could be said that it was a unique world that was completely independent of the world that Luo Qingtong was in. It was another small world. This was why sector beasts were so precious. They could allow people to become the master of a world. Not only that, but they could also use the power inside to cultivate their own power. Little Furball's power was even more amazing. It was an extremely rare existence among sector beasts. As long as it could be used well, Luo Qingtong could use the sector beast space. It opened to nurture a large number of extremely terrifying forces. It should be noted that Tuanzi's ability was to open the long river of stars, so that people could go back to their previous lives and borrow the power of their previous lives. Its ability was to control time. No matter how useless a person was, in the space of the sector beast, it was possible for him to develop extremely terrifying power from his previous life. At that time, he would be able to be used by Luo Qingtong. Once this ability was developed to the extreme, it would be more terrifying than any sector beast's ability. This was because the sector beast space of other sector beasts did not have an ability like Tuanzi's, which could allow one's power to soar to an extremely terrifying level in an instant. Even if this increase was only temporary, it was still something that others could not hope to achieve. After all, most people would be stuck at a bottleneck and unable to advance. They would never be able to experience and comprehend a higher level of power in their entire lives. However, with Xiao Tuanzi's sector beast space and ability, this was not a problem at all. It was equivalent to giving you the level of power that you could reach in the future in advance, so that you could comprehend the feeling of standing at the peak to your heart's content. Luo Qingtong listened to Little Pig's narration, and her eyes kept shining. Little Furball's ability was really too amazing. Chapter 2773. No wonder those people from the land of the fallen immortals desperately fought for it. Even if they died and were wiped out, they were not willing to leak any information about it. In the end, above its head, a huge resentment condensed and shrouded it, creating the terrifying reputation of the land of the fallen immortals. However, Xiao Tuanzi's strength was still weak. It still had a long way to go before it could grow to the point where it could breed creatures and allow people to cultivate. At this stage, It had just opened up the sector beast space. This space was still very fragile and unstable. Its current ability was only to contact its birthplace, the True Spill continent. Through the connection between the sector beast space and the True Spill continent, Xiao Tuanzi could instantly return to the True Spill continent as long as it had enough strength. This ability was quite suitable for Luo Qingtong. It had to be known that she was most worried about grandfather Luo, Suyu, and the others in the True Spill continent. When she left before, if she didn't know that Yi Qianxian would definitely arrange everything in the True Spill continent, she wouldn't be able to stay in the Heavenly Wind domain with peace of mind. Now that Xiao Tuanzi had this ability, Luo Qingtong could leave the True Spill continent with peace of mind. In the future, she wouldn't have to worry about the True Spill continent when she wasn't there. After all, although she could bring grandfather Luo, Suyu, and the others out, the True Spill continent was their route. Secondly, Luo Qingtong had countless troubles, and none of them were easy to solve. Grandfather Luo and the others were safer in the True Spill continent than with her. Therefore, with Xiao Tuanzi's ability, Luo Qingtong was completely relieved. She talked with Xiao Tuanzi for a while. Suddenly, the little guy seemed to think of something and spat out a bunch of things. Luo Qingtong looked at the things Xiao Tuanzi spat out. She couldn't stop herself and almost fell from the starry sky. What's going on? Luo Qingtong looked at the things floating in front of her in shock, and her eyes widened. This is sky grass. Damn, so many Tianluo grass. Little Pig was also startled by Xiao Tuanzi's actions. Soon after, it began to squeal. Damn you bastard. You swallowed the core of that abandoned continent. Oh my god, so many Tianluo grass. Just how long has the heart of the continent absorbed the power of the great Tao? Little Pig widened his beady eyes in shock. The Flying Star Lian clan and the Tianfeng Chu clan thought that there was only one sky luo grass in the heart of the continent. But then again, they didn't even get close at that time. They only saw the image of a single sky luo grass on the horizon. Naturally, they thought that there was only one sky luo grass here. Who would have thought that the abandoned continent actually hid the secret of an ancient divine object? Moreover, the heart of the continent had been nourished by the power of the great Tao for so many years, and even a pseudo-great Tao spirit and spirit beast had been born. Being able to breed so many sky luo grass seemed to be a very normal thing. Little Pig roughly counted the number of sky luo grass. There were nearly 500 of them. If others were to know about this, all the forces and powerhouses under the 3-star region would go crazy. With so many sky luo grass, how many venerable realm powerhouses could be created? Chapter 2774. Anyone who consumed the Tianluo grass would be able to cultivate to the venerable realm in the future, regardless of their previous strength or talent. Moreover, his cultivation speed was not something that ordinary people could compare with. It could be said that anyone who consumed the Tianluo grass would be comparable to a peerless genius. Luo Qingtong looked at the Tianluo grass and couldn't help but pat Tuanzi's little head. Well done. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh. Previously, she felt very regretful that she couldn't obtain the Tianluo grass in the heart of the continent. However, the situation was urgent at that time. Then the abandoned continent collapsed. Everything happened in an instant, one after another. She didn't have the time to think about the Tianluo grass. She didn't expect Tuanzi to be so awesome. It actually brought back the Tianluo grass. Not only that, but it also brought back so much. It was a great harvest. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Tuanzi jumped up happily. After it woke up, it instinctively swallowed the Tianluo grass into its stomach. At that time, Little Pig didn't notice. Tuanzi didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be so happy. It felt very comfortable with the great Tao energy in the heart of the continent, so it subconsciously swallowed the Tianluo grass. It just thought that Luo Qingtong might need the Tianluo grass, so it spat them out. When it heard Luo Qingtong praising it, it began to squeal. It was so happy that it couldn't control itself. Her pair of big round eyes narrowed into 2 slits. She looked very cute. In the end, it kept rubbing against Luo Qingtong's palm. Chirp, chirp, chirp. While it was squeaking happily, a slender black shadow suddenly jumped out from the pile of Tianluo grass. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She raised her hand and brandished her life and death sword to block the slender black shadow. The latter wanted to force its way through, but it sensed the aura of the life and death sword. In an instant, it let out a sharp cry and hurriedly retreated. Then it pounced on Luo Qingtong. It could tell that Luo Qingtong was the weakest among the two beasts and one human. After all, Luo Qingtong's strength had yet to recover. She was completely relying on the strength of her physical body to cross the starry sky. Although Little Pig beside it was also weak, there was an aura inside its body that made the black shadow extremely fearful. It didn't dare to charge towards Little Pig. As for Xiao Tuanzi, it was needless to say. The black shadow had just been trapped in Xiao Tuanzi's sector beast space, and there was no way out for it. Now that they were released, how would they dare to provoke her again? From the looks of it, Luo Qingtong was the weakest. Therefore, it directly rushed towards Luo Qingtong. However, who would have thought that Luo Qingtong would raise her hand, and the evil blood bracelet would turn into a glove and wrap around her hands? Although the evil blood bracelet didn't have enough power now, it could still transform into a basic form. Then, she pinched the figure that was pouncing on her. Tianluo grass spirit? Luo Qingtong looked at the figure that was twisting and turning in her hand, struggling to escape. She raised her eyebrows. This figure looked like a stalk of sky luo grass. Chapter 2775. Immortal Grass Spirit? This Tianluo grass was completely different from the other Tianluo grass. It was probably the first Tianluo grass born in the heart of the continent. It absorbed too much power of the Great Path and developed spiritual intelligence, just like those spirit beasts and pseudo-Great Path spirits. The effect of this immortal grass spirit was more than 10 times that of the previous Tianluo grass. Luo Qingtong looked at this Tianluo grass spirit and laughed. Interesting. I didn't expect there to be so many treasures in the heart of the continent. There was actually a Tianluo grass spirit. This kind of thing was even rarer than the natural godly things. The more powerful and high-level things were, the harder it was for them to develop spiritual intelligence, let alone evolve into a Tianluo grass spirit. This was also her luck. If Tuanzi hadn't advanced and opened the sector beast space to swallow the heart of the continent, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have been able to get the Tianluo grass in the heart of the continent, let alone the Tianluo grass spirit. Luo Qingtong smiled and bound the Tianluo grass spirit in her hand. The Tianluo grass spirit couldn't resist the aura of the evil blood bracelet. Even though Luo Qingtong didn't have any power at this time, and could only activate the evil blood bracelet's form, the Tianluo grass spirit couldn't help but wither when facing the aura of the evil blood bracelet. Fays like them were most afraid of encountering the aura of divine items that were of a higher grade than them. The suppressive power of the aura alone was enough to make its body tremble, and it couldn't fight back at all. When it kept struggling but couldn't escape, suddenly, a voice came from the front. Why does it seem like there's an extremely strong and rich spirit aura coming from the front? Hearing this voice, Luo Qingtong suddenly narrowed her eyes and threw the Tianluo grass spirit in her hand to Tuanzi. Put it away first. While speaking, Luo Qingtong had already raised her hand and put away the Tianluo grass floating in front of her. There was no doubt that the strong and rich spirit aura she sensed came from the Tianluo grass spirit and these Tianluo grass. Sensing that there seemed to be a group of powerful auras coming from afar, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. She raised her hand and used the life and death yin-yang sword to cut wounds on her body. These wounds looked scary, but in fact they only cut the skin. For Luo Qingtong's strong body, if these wounds hadn't been caused by the life and death life yin-yang sword, they would have healed in an instant. Pretending to be seriously injured, Luo Qingtong fell into the starry sky. Luo grass life, grass 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 grass, the grass 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 grass, grass 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 grass. The powerful and dense spirit chi is gone. He was wearing the uniform of a guard commander, and the aura he emitted was at the 9th level of the purple venerable realm. As for the people around him, Their strengths were all at the Amethyst Exalt realm and above. Looking at their aura, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. This place was close to the Star Desolation region. In the 9-star star field, there was no force that could have such tyrannical guards. They were actually all Amethyst Venerable Realm experts. Who were these people? Chapter 2776. Wake her up and ask her what's going on. Seeing that Luo Qingtong's body was covered in injuries and blood, the Purple Elder Ninth Realm commander frowned and ordered one of his guards. Yes, that guard received the order and immediately rushed to Luo Qingtong. He raised his hand and fed a pill into Luo Qingtong's mouth. The latter didn't refuse. Her serious injuries were waiting for these people to treat her. Otherwise, how would she explain when her injuries healed? As for whether there would be any problems with the pill, Luo Qingtong wasn't worried at all, because she could tell. Secondly, even if there was a problem, she could solve it. Therefore, she swallowed the pill without hesitation. After a while, she pretended to wake up and looked at the group of Purple Elder Realm experts in front of her with a frightened expression. Don't kill me. I don't know anything. That thing just now, it went that way. As she spoke, she pointed forward with a pale and terrified face. In an instant, the group of purple venerables couldn't be bothered to pay attention to her. Their figures flashed, and they flashed in the direction that she had pointed out. The dense spiritual energy just now was extremely strong. It was obviously a very rare treasure. Now that they heard Luo Qingtong's words, it seemed that the thing was spiritual and was escaping in another direction. How could they miss such an opportunity? As for Luo Qingtong, no one looked at her. She didn't have any aura of power in her body. With one look, they knew that she wasn't an expert. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been injured by that spiritual object. After all, although the spiritual object's aura was strong, they rushed over very quickly. If the other party was strong enough, even if she was seriously injured, she wouldn't be in such a state without any aura of power. Therefore, the group didn't care about Luo Qingtong and directly chased forward. After they left, Luo Qingtong immediately clapped her hands and stood up, preparing to leave. At this moment, she heard a clear voice from the direction those people were coming from. Young Master, Commander Qin, and the others are heading this way. Well, let's go and take a look then. As they spoke, a group that was slightly weaker than the Purple Venerable Realm experts from before appeared before Luo Qingtong. In an instant she narrowed her eyes. The group of guards was extremely luxurious. They were all Blue Venerable Realm and Purple Venerable Realm experts. They were escorting an extremely luxurious carriage. The 4 hooves of the demonic beast pulling the carriage soared into the air, as if it was treading on the starry sky. The strength of these demonic beasts were all around the Blue Supremacy Realm. Not only that, but the aura of the 2 maidservants guarding the carriage was also around the Amethyst Venerable Realm. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed as she looked at the carriage. The voice just now came from this carriage. It was a man's voice. Who was sitting in the carriage? Where did the other party come from? Luo Qingtong had seen people from the Star Alliance before. She knew that with the other parties' lineup in strength, it was impossible for them to be from the 9-star domain. The top experts in the Star Alliance were only at the Purple Venerable Realm. They already held high positions and were overlords. These Blue Venerable Realm and Purple Venerable Realm experts were clearly just ordinary maidservants and guards. Chapter 2777. In this way, the strength of these people was actually comparable to the strength of the entire Star Alliance. How could these people be from the 9-star domain? Just as Luo Qingtong was thinking about this, she saw the curtain of the carriage in front of her lift up. In an instant her face froze. Behind the curtain of the carriage, a jade-like face was revealed. The face of the man opposite her was 30% fairy-like and 70% fairy-like. At first glance, that face that carried an immortal aura was like the early winter snow that enveloped the peak of a mountain, ethereal and clean. His entire temperament was very clear and made people feel very comfortable. Even that head of white hair did not diminish his charm in the slightest. The other party sat there like an immortal who was about to ascend into the heavens, and also like a sparkling and translucent person carved out of ice. However, his face was very pale, and there was an obvious sickly look on his face. Luo Qingtong looked over and realized that there was not a trace of energy in his body. It was even cleaner than hers. This rich young master, who obviously had a very strong guard force and was not from the 9-star domain, was actually a person who could not cultivate. While Luo Qingtong was astonished, the carriage had already arrived in front of her. That young master glanced at her and then said warmly, "Hello, young lady. I wonder if you have seen my guard?" The moment he spoke, Luo Qingtong realized that she had unknowingly returned to her female appearance. She must have changed back when Xiao Tuanzi sent her back. Otherwise, the Emperor of Tiandu would have discovered her identity long ago. Was it because she had used the power of her previous life? Luo Qingtong thought so and did not mind. She looked at the young master opposite her. The way the latter acted and spoke was very comfortable, and there was not the slightest bit of arrogance. Luo Qingtong did not mind telling him the whereabouts of those purple venerable experts. However, just as she was about to speak, the figures of those purple venerable experts swept over from not far away. "Young master, why are you here?" When this amethyst elder 9th level commander saw the group of people that had appeared, he immediately frowned. Commander Qin left with young master's strongest guards without saying a word. "If young master doesn't follow me, what if someone tries to harm young master?" In the carriage, a maidservant sitting on the left side of the shaft sneered. "Commander Qin is really awe-inspiring. I have never seen a guard who would abandon his master and run away with his subordinates. If anything happens to the young master this time, let's see how you'll explain it to the patriarch and the others." Commander Qin's expression immediately changed when he heard the words of the servant girl. This time they were indeed in the wrong. After sensing the rich and powerful aura, they didn't have time to take care of the young master and directly rushed over. But in any case, he was still a commander. He had quite a bit of status in the clan. How could a servant girl scold him? He immediately pulled a long face and said coldly, "This commander suspects that there are people here who want to harm young master. Can't I come over to investigate? Everything this commander has done is for the young master." Chapter 2778. As he spoke, he looked arrogantly at the maidservant. The latter was angered by his words. The other party was simply shameless. "You're talking nonsense. There's only a powerless girl here, and she's even heavily injured. Who would harm the young master? It's clearly you guys who have selfish motives, purposely hiding the fact that you came here, and you actually dare to quibble." That maidservant wasn't an ordinary person, and she immediately confronted that Commander Qin. She raised her hand and pointed at Luo Qingtong, laughing coldly. "Commander Qin, tell me, what ability does such a person have to injure the young master?" The moment her words came out, that Commander Qin instantly sneered. Whether she has the ability or not, this commander will only know after interrogating her. Who knows if she's purposely pretending? As he spoke, he raised his hand and was about to order the people beside him to capture Luo Qingtong. No matter who the other party was, it would be best to silence them. This way, no one would be able to pursue the responsibility of leaving their post without permission. When Luo Qingtong saw the two of them confronting each other and actually burning her, her lips instantly twitched. What the hell? What did it mean to be shot while lying down? This was called being shot while lying down. When she saw those amethyst venerables flying towards her, her face instantly turned cold. If possible, Luo Qingtong actually didn't want to recover her strength so quickly, but who asked the other party to go too far? Seeing that Commander Qin was prepared to use her as a stepping stone to shift the blame, a cold glint flashed across Luo Qingtong's eyes. She directly wanted to recover her strength. However, at this moment, that young master's voice rang out. "All right, you guys don't need to fight anymore. Commander Qin may really be worried about my safety, but this young lady..." Ji Feiyu looked towards Luo Qingtong as he spoke. With his sharp senses, he naturally could see that Commander Qin was purposely using Luo Qingtong as an excuse to escape punishment. He didn't want Luo Qingtong to be implicated, and immediately said softly, She's already heavily injured and has no strength left. It's impossible for her to do anything to me. Perhaps Commander Qin is thinking too much. Let's continue on our way. When he spoke to this point, he saw that Commander Qin was about to say something with an arrogant expression. Immediately, his expression turned slightly cold as he said in a deep voice, "Father and the rest are still waiting for us to return and report back to the clan. I feel that we should hurry to the Star Alliance as soon as possible. Commander Qin, what do you think?" Ji Feiyu's words were still gentle, but the meaning behind them was irrefutable. As his voice rang out, Governor Qin, who had originally seen that he had the upper hand, was prepared to follow up his victory and attack, wanting to make things difficult for that servant girl. Hearing his words, he instantly didn't dare to say anything more. "Yes, we'll be on our way." As he spoke till here, he waved his hand and ordered his men to return and stop capturing Luo Qingtong. Since the young master didn't want to pursue the matter, then there was no need to waste time on such a powerless young lady. However, just as he spoke, Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. "Wait, you're going to leave just like that after wrongly accusing me?" Luo Qingtong's brows rose slightly. Originally, if that young master didn't stand up for her, she wasn't prepared to say these words. Instead, she was prepared to directly take action. Chapter 2779. A slave bullying his master. Luo Qingtong looked coldly at Commander Qin's actions. How could she not know that he was bullying that young master for having no strength? If it was another young master from an aristocratic family, just based on Commander Qin's actions, he would have been tortured to death countless times. Since the other party had no way to teach this Commander Qin a lesson, then she would give the other party a reason to attack. Luo Qingtong thought so and immediately said coldly, "Although my strength is not good, I am not someone who can be slandered by others without speaking up. You people just ran over to ask me what treasure I had, and even gave me a pill to treat my injuries. Now you're saying that I want to harm your master? So you're saying that you're the mastermind behind my actions? After all, the pill to treat my injuries was given by you. You dare to say that you're worried about my master's safety? Are all guards so shameless these days?" The moment Luo Qingtong's words came out, Commander Qin's face instantly turned green and red. He didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be so daring. She directly exposed his actions, and even scolded him to his face. Was this woman not afraid of death? His face was filled with anger, and he immediately shouted, "Shut up! You're spouting nonsense. I think you're really plotting something and want to harm our team. That's why you're deliberately saying this to sow discord between me and young master." As he said this, his killing intent soared. "Men, kill her without mercy." However, just as he spoke, a voice rang out from the other side. "Wait!" As she spoke, a whip suddenly attacked Luo Qingtong. Sensing that this whip didn't have any malicious intent, Luo Qingtong didn't resist, and allowed the whip to wrap around her. With a swoosh, that whip brought Luo Qingtong to the shaft of the carriage. It was the maidservant who was at loggerheads with Commander Qin. She had brought Luo Qingtong to him. Didn't Commander Qin say that you're doing this for young master? Why did you fly into a rage out of humiliation, just because someone said a few words? I think you have a guilty conscience." As the maidservant spoke, she immediately looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Speak. As long as what you say is true, we will naturally uphold justice for you." As she spoke, she raised her head and sneered. Deceiving young master and deceiving his superiors and subordinates is not a small crime. Some people are just waiting for bad luck. Hearing her words, Commander Qin's expression immediately turned abnormally ugly. He looked at Luo Qingtong and said in a threatening tone, "You'd better think carefully about what you should say and what you shouldn't say. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences of saying something wrong." Commander Qin had a fierce expression on his face. His eyes were filled with threat. However, since Luo Qingtong dared to speak, she was not afraid of his threat. What's more, this maidservant was clearly not on good terms with him. With someone protecting her, she didn't have to worry about exposing her strength in advance. What else did Luo Qingtong not dare to say? She immediately raised her eyebrows and said, I still have the aura left behind by the elixir on my body. In addition, as she spoke, she raised her hand and wiped the corner of her lips. This medicinal powder should be enough to prove what elixir I took, right? For clan guards like Governor Qin, they would usually be equipped with medicinal pills given to them by their clans. It was simply too easy for them to investigate this. Chapter 2780. At this moment, the maidservant's voice rang out. How is it, Commander Qin? Do you still want to say that you did it for young master's sake? Her words were full of sarcasm. Qin Xiong and the rest could not refute anything. They could only kneel and beg Ji Feiyu for forgiveness with ugly expressions. We were blinded by greed. Young master, please punish us. Commander Qin's expression was sullen to the extreme. He originally thought that Luo Qingtong would not dare to expose them. That was why he dared to lie so arrogantly in front of Ji Feiyu. Who would have thought that this woman would be so unafraid of death? She actually revealed everything about them. Commander Qin's expression was ugly as he glared fiercely at Luo Qingtong. She would wait for him. He would not let her off. Seeing his gaze, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. She did not put Qin Xiong's threat in her eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that she wanted to lay a better foundation and prevent herself from encountering too many obstacles when breaking through to the human martial realm, she would have revealed her true strength and killed him directly. With his strength, he dared to be arrogant in front of her. Even if she did not use the life and death duality sword, she could still kill him directly. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent, and she did not care about Commander Qin's threat. However, Ji Feiyu frowned slightly. This young girl had obviously suffered an undeserved calamity because of him and the rest. Now, not only did Qin Xiong and the rest not repent, they even held a grudge against her. Could it be that they wanted to take revenge on her? Thinking of this, Ji Feiyu's expression suddenly darkened. He had been weak since childhood and could not cultivate. Therefore, he had already experienced the fickleness of the world. He knew that these people had always liked to deceive him. Moreover, they had neglected him openly and secretly. They did not put him in their eyes at all. However, he could suffer all this. If this implicated other innocent people, he would never agree. This young girl clearly did not do anything wrong. Could it be that because of Qin Xiong and the rest's selfishness, she would attract such a calamity? How could he live with that in his heart? With that thought in mind, his face darkened and he said coldly, "Since you know you're wrong, go down and receive your punishment. Deceiving your superiors and concealing your subordinates. All of you, go and receive 100 lashes. In addition, Governor Qin has failed to control his subordinates properly and is not strict enough. He even led his subordinates to deceive others. This is an additional crime. Go and receive 300 spirit whips." As soon as he spoke, everyone present was shocked. Especially Qin Xiong and the others. Their expressions changed drastically. Looking at Ji Feiyu, they almost cried out in shock. "Young master." Even if Qin Xiong was a 9th-level Purple Exalt Realm expert, he would still suffer heavy injuries from 300 lashes. He wouldn't be able to use his strength for the next few days. As for the others, their strength was not as good as Qin Xiong's. After receiving the punishment of 100 spirit whips, almost all of them were injured and were completely unable to use their strength in the next few days. What was young master doing? Normally, he was the most lenient person and would never be heavy-handed to his subordinates. Why was their punishment so severe this time? What? You're not convinced? Ji Feiyu's eyes were slightly cold. He was a lenient person, but he could not watch Qin Xiong and the rest harm Luo Qingtong. Otherwise, what was the difference between him and an accomplice of a tyrant? Moreover, Qin Xiong and the rest were domineering. Punishing them severely this time could save him trouble in the future. Chapter 2781. The moment Ji Feiyu's words left his mouth, Qin Xiong and the rest immediately shut their mouths. Even if Ji Feiyu was unable to cultivate, he was still their family Ji's legitimate son and their master. They could deceive Ji Feiyu in private and at the same time defy his orders. However, it was impossible for them to openly contradict Ji Feiyu and disobey his orders. The family Ji would not allow such arrogant and despotic servants to exist. At that moment, the group of purple venerable realm guards could only sullenly comply. As for trying to escape punishment by saying that their strength had been damaged, and they could not protect their young master better, it was simply impossible. Firstly, without them, Ji Feiyu would not have any guards by his side. Secondly, they had already left Ji Feiyu behind once, and still dared to deceive him. Under such circumstances, what was the difference between having them and not having them? The group of people could not find a reason not to accept the punishment, and could only be dragged away by the other personal guards by Ji Feiyu's side to be whipped. Although these people's strength was not as good as theirs, they were loyal to Ji Feiyu, and had been by his side since young. Therefore, they did not show any mercy when punishing Qin Xiong and the rest. During this period of time, they had also suffered a lot because of Qin Xiong's domineering and arrogant attitude. Now they could hold their heads high. The group of people beat Qin Xiong, and the rest until their flesh was lacerated, and they screamed in pain. Ji Feiyu looked at Luo Qingtong and said apologetically, "I'm really sorry, Mississippi. My guards have wronged you and frightened you. I wonder where you're heading to. If it's convenient, I can send you back or send 2 guards to escort you back as an apology." His expression was sincere, and so were his words. Luo Qingtong's heart moved slightly when she heard this. She did need a team to travel with her. That way, she could focus on recovering her strength without worrying about being disturbed. After all this time, Luo Qingtong was preparing to re-experience the state of mind and the process of advancing. If she suddenly encountered danger and recovered her strength, then all her previous efforts would be wasted. But things were different with Ji Feiyu and the others. Given the strength of the other team, it was unlikely that they would encounter any trouble in the 9-star domain. Even if they encountered them, they would be able to deal with them. His destination was the Star Alliance, which was similar to hers. Going to the Star Alliance first, and then returning to True Spill Continent wasn't a bad idea. After all, Luo Qingtong clearly remembered that when she left, the people of the Star Alliance were prepared to deal with Yi Qianxian and the True Spill Continent. However, with Yi Qianxian around, they definitely wouldn't succeed. But as for the specific situation, Luo Qingtong didn't know. It would be good to go and inquire. Of course, the most important thing was that Luo Qingtong didn't want to reveal that her destination was the True Spill Continent. She smiled at Ji Feiyu and said, "All right, then I'll have to thank young master. I won't trouble you too much. Let's go to the Star Alliance together. I also have some matters to attend to there." As Luo Qingtong spoke, Ji Feiyu immediately nodded. Then, he had the maid who opposed Qin Xiong take her to settle down. The maid was called Suiyu, and she was a very straightforward person. Chapter 2782. The maid called Suiyu brought Luo Qingtong to a small carriage at the back. This carriage was where the maids usually rested. Although it wasn't as big as Ji Feiyu's carriage, it was still quite spacious. With Luo Qingtong inside, it wasn't a problem at all. What's more, these maids usually stayed by Ji Feiyu's side. They were maids, but at the same time, they also had the responsibility of guarding. They were different from the maids who played around with the young masters of aristocratic families. Thus, Luo Qingtong was usually alone in the carriage. This was exactly what she wanted. This way, no one would be able to discover that she was secretly recovering and increasing her strength. Not only that, it would also allow her to calm down. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she immediately thanked Suiyu and got into the carriage. As for Qin Xiong and the others, they were even limping when they came back from the torture. When they heard that Ji Feiyu had left Luo Qingtong in the group, their eyes were immediately filled with poison. "This slut, I won't let her have an easy time. Just you wait." Qin Xiong's heart was filled with anger. He originally wanted to take advantage of the time when Luo Qingtong left to send people to follow her trail and kill her. After all, although they couldn't use their strength for the time being, it was still easy for them to use their physical strength to directly kill a young girl. Who would have thought that Ji Feiyu would actually leave her in the group? Not only that, that slut knew how to seize the opportunity. She actually said that she would also go to the Star Alliance to do some business. She wanted to go with them to the Star Alliance, so that they wouldn't have a chance to make a move on the way. This slut, sooner or later, I'll let her know how powerful we are. Qin Xiong's expression was dark and ruthless. However, a purple venerated realm expert beside him said, "Commander, I think that young master intentionally left this young lady behind. It's to prevent us from making a move on her. She's really lucky. I'm afraid we can't deal with her." When he said this, Qin Xiong immediately snorted and said, "What's the hurry? We can't deal with her now. But we can't say for sure when we're in Star Alliance. Don't forget why young master is here. As long as we do something, there are plenty of people in the Star Alliance who want to kill her. Why would we need to do it ourselves? Humph, this bitch, she thinks she'll be safe if she follows us to Star Alliance. Let's see how she'll die then." As Qin Xiong said this, he accidentally pulled at his own wound. He immediately screamed in pain, his face twisting. Luo Qingtong didn't know what Qin Xiong and the others were planning. Even if she knew, she wouldn't care. As long as she was willing, the entire Star Alliance wouldn't be able to stop her, let alone harm her. At this moment, she was recovering her strength in the carriage. Luo Qingtong's movements were very slow. Previously, because she had not found a suitable place, she had not begun to recover her strength. Now that she didn't have to worry about being in Ji Feiyu's group, she naturally began to draw energy into her body. Because she had to suppress her strength, she didn't let it rise to the peak all of a sudden. Instead, she had to slowly let Luo Qingtong comprehend the process of her previous breakthroughs. Therefore, the process of drawing energy into her body was very slow. Chapter 2783. This was definitely a test of one's patience and control. If Luo Qingtong wasn't careful, her entire strength would be restored to the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm. Then, the idea of laying the foundation would all be for naught. Therefore, after a full cycle, her forehead was covered in sweat, and her back was completely wet. Only then did she recover to the level of a martial master. Oh my god, this is really too torturous. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. She deeply felt that even when she broke through before, it wasn't as painful as this. The speed of recovery was really difficult to grasp. There were several times when she almost unconsciously let go of the speed of absorption. If she hadn't reacted in time, her strength would have been directly promoted to the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm. Then, how would she be able to experience the foundation and re-understand the process of promotion? However, with these few experiences, Luo Qingtong was even more cautious about the absorption of spiritual energy. Her speed of absorption was always around a certain level. As the strength in her body increased, it slowly increased. Soon, she was able to perfectly control the speed of recovery of the strength in her body. She didn't need to constantly pay attention to the absorption of the strength in her body. This kind of improvement was very beneficial to Luo Qingtong. At this moment, her control of her own strength had reached a terrifying level. As long as she was willing, she could control the output and attack of her own strength at any time according to the level of strength she needed. This extremely precise control allowed Luo Qingtong to defeat people of the same level as her, or even people of a higher level, with the smallest price and the least amount of strength. The most direct manifestation was that after Luo Qingtong's strength had been promoted to the Saint Realm, she could completely defeat people of the Saint Realm, and even the Sage Master Realm with strength that surpassed the Saint Realm. This referred to the fact that Luo Qingtong didn't rely on anything else. She could only rely on her own strength and ordinary martial techniques to achieve this effect. If she used the Life and Death Yin-Yang Sword, the Evil Blood Bracelet, the Soul Seal of the Soul of 1,000 Flames, the Heaven and Earth Tyrant Fist, and the Heaven Conquering Art, anyone below the Venerable Realm would be no match for her. And this was when Luo Qingtong's strength had just recovered to the Saint Realm. If she waited until her strength recovered to the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm, then she would be completely capable of directly crushing all the experts at the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm without the assistance of the Crimson Eye and the Life and Death Sword. Only warriors in the human martial arts realm could make her use the life and death yin-yang sword, and the blood eye. Even so, low-level martial artists of the third level of the human martial realm, and below, would be completely oppressed by Luo Qingtong. While Luo Qingtong was slowly recovering her strength, Ji Feiyu's team had already entered the boundary of the Star Wilderness. When they were eating and resting together, Luo Qingtong had already learned about the origin of Ji Feiyu and the others from Suiyu and the others. It turned out that the other party was from the family Ji of the 8-star wilderness Dongting region. Ji Feiyu was the legitimate son of the family Ji. If he was in any other aristocratic family, he would definitely be the young master. However, because Ji Feiyu couldn't cultivate, the position of the young master was given to someone else. The purpose of their visit to the Star Alliance this time made Luo Qingtong rather embarrassed. Because Ji Feiyu and the others had come to the Star Wilderness this time to propose marriage. Chapter 2784. Wasn't that an old acquaintance? Luo Qingtong would never have thought that Ji Feiyu would propose marriage to Emo Zhuling, that young lady from the Star Alliance, that woman who coveted her man on the True Spill continent. In order to get Yi Qianxian, she even tried to use the power of the Star Alliance to force him to bow his head. According to Suiyu and the others, Emo Zhuling and Ji Feiyu had been engaged since they were young. In other words, that woman Emo Zhuling, even though she had Ji Feiyu as her fiancé, she still dared to provoke her man. Motherf *Ker, this was simply too much. Luo Qingtong didn't know what to say. She looked sympathetically at Ji Feiyu, who was not far away. She only felt that he was being cheated on. But since he was Emo Zhuling's fiancé, would he be her enemy in the future? Luo Qingtong thought of this, and suddenly felt conflicted. She didn't have a bad impression of Ji Feiyu. When Qin Xiong was dealing with her, he tried his best to protect her. He was tolerant and gentle, and it was hard to tell that he was a young master from an 8-star region. He didn't have the slightest bit of arrogance. If possible, Luo Qingtong didn't want to be his enemy. Thinking of this, she suddenly asked Suiyu and the others, does your young master like that young lady from the Star Alliance? It would be best if he didn't like her. Then there wouldn't be any conflict between them. However, as soon as she said this, Suiyu and the others looked at her strangely and then asked, "Why are you asking this?" "Let me tell you, Xiaoqi, you can't like our young master." Suiyu and the others already knew Luo Qingtong's name. Of course, it was Luo Xiaoqi. Suiyu and the others also knew that it was an alias. In fact, it was Ji Feiyu who asked Luo Qingtong to use an alias. It was easy for Qin Xiong and the others to remember her real name. But if she didn't use her real name, it would be very inconvenient in her daily life. Therefore, he asked Suiyu and the others to tell Luo Qingtong to think of a name, and not use her real name. There was no need to let them know her real name, so that they wouldn't accidentally call her by the wrong name, and bring trouble to Luo Qingtong. He was thoughtful, and Luo Qingtong also had the same idea, so she said her real name. At this moment, Suiyu and the others were looking at her with a serious expression. Our young master already has an engagement with someone. This time we're here to propose marriage. It's impossible for him to be involved with another woman. Xiaoqi, your identity, your status. Suiyu couldn't help say Titius not. With our young master's status, even if he can't cultivate, there are countless people in the 8-star region who will send themselves to him. The reason why he's engaged to Emo Zhuling is because of a promise made by the former head of the family and the leader of the Star Alliance. Therefore, Xiaoqi, don't be stupid. It's really impossible between our young master and you. Hearing their words, Luo Qingtong didn't know what kind of expression to show. She just asked Ji Feiyu if he liked Emo Zhuling, so that she could be sure whether he would be her enemy in the future. Where did these people's thoughts go? Damn it! Nowadays, we're all maidservants so good at imagining things. Chapter 2785. I didn't say that I like your young master. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she tried to explain herself. She was just about to say that she already had someone she liked when she heard a curious voice. What are you talking about? Ji Feiyu had just eaten and was walking around to digest his food. When he walked over, he happened to hear the last two words that Luo Qingtong said. Seeing that she mentioned him, he walked over. His white hair was fluttering, his face was like jade, and his eyebrows were like green mountains. He was indescribably clear and clean. His voice sounded. Before Luo Qingtong could speak, Sui Yu, who didn't notice that it was her young master who walked over, opened her mouth and said, "We are saying that little Qi likes young master." Young master? When Sui Yu said the last sentence, she happened to see her young master's face appear in front of her. Her eyes instantly widened, and she almost spat out the food in her mouth. Oh my God! Why did young master appear here? And Luo Qingtong was even more depressed than her. What kind of misunderstanding was this? What the hell? That young master, it's not what you think. Luo Qingtong saw that Ji Feiyu was completely stunned and immediately explained. I already have someone I like. This was all a misunderstanding. Luo Qingtong was about to say this, but she saw Ji Feiyu quickly look at her, and then hurriedly turn and leave. I know this is all just a joke. I'll treat it as if this matter never happened. When he said this, he immediately left in a hurry. If she ignored his red ears and stumbling footsteps that almost made him fall, Luo Qingtong really thought that he was telling the truth. What the hell? This was a big misunderstanding. How is this not happening? The other party clearly took it seriously. What the hell? Sister Sui Yu, I really don't like your young master. Luo Qingtong looked at Sui Yu and the group of valiant maids. She really clenched her teeth so hard that they almost broke. She had really been wrongly blamed for this. If that damn man Yi Qianxian came to True Spill Continent to find her, and found out that she had fallen in love with someone else, how was she going to explain it to him? How could she be so deceitful? If she had known that a casual question would lead to such a tragic outcome, she would have covered her mouth just now. Her heart was stifled. Luo Qingtong had a depressed expression. Finally, Sui Yu and the others realized that they had misunderstood. Little Qi, you really don't like our young master? Sui Yu carefully asked. No. Luo Qingtong looked at her with resentment. I have someone I like. To be precise, it's my fiancé. The others assistis also tsestes. If not for this, they would not have misunderstood. I was just casually asking. Luo Qingtong gnashed her teeth. Who knew you would think that I like your young master? If she knew this, she wouldn't have opened her mouth. When Luo Qingtong's words came out, Sui Yu and the others were suddenly dumbfounded. If that was the case, they really made a big mistake. What should we do? Should I explain to the young master? Sui Yu said. She looked at Luo Qingtong with eyes full of guilt. She really didn't mean it. But who would have thought that Luo Qingtong was just casually asking? She thought that Luo Qingtong was interested in her young master, so she asked such a question. After all, they had met many people like that before. That was why they tried their best to persuade Luo Qingtong right away. Chapter 2786. The corners of Luo Qingtong's lips twitched slightly. It would be best if she could explain it clearly, but she was afraid that it would only make things worse if she tried to cover it up, and Ji Feiyu would misunderstand her even more. F***ck. Emo Zhuling stole her man, and she was forced to steal the other party's man. What kind of ill-fated relationship was this? Emo Zhuling's 8 characters just didn't match with hers, right? Luo Qingtong suddenly had a headache as she thought about it. After Ji Feiyu went back for a while, he also thought it through. At that time, Luo Qingtong's expression was very strange. When he suddenly heard Sui Yu and the others' words, he was shocked and didn't notice it. Now that he thought about it, the other party didn't seem to like him. He was afraid that Sui Yu and the others misunderstood. Fortunately, he didn't say anything bad at that time. Ji Feiyu thought about it and immediately felt relieved. He was a generous and gentle person. He was really a gentle person. At that time, when he heard Sui Yu say that Luo Qingtong liked him, his first reaction wasn't to scold Luo Qingtong, nor did he think that she was overestimating herself. She clearly knew that he was engaged and still liked him. Instead, he immediately said that it was just a joke. He wouldn't take it to heart, and wouldn't take it seriously. He would just pretend that it didn't happen. This wasn't just a tactful rejection. It was also protecting Luo Qingtong. After all, a girl's feelings and dignity couldn't be blasphemed. No matter what he said at that time, it could make Luo Qingtong embarrassed. It was better to just pretend that it didn't happen. But fortunately, it was just a misunderstanding. Thinking of this, Ji Feiyu heaved a sigh of relief. Otherwise, he really didn't know how to face Luo Qingtong. He was engaged. It was impossible for him to be entangled with someone else when he already had a fiancée. And Luo Qingtong didn't directly confess to him. It was difficult for him to explain it clearly to the other party. This would be the best result. Luo Qingtong had a headache for a while. When she found that Ji Feiyu's attitude didn't change, she immediately felt relieved. Obviously, the other party had realized that this was a misunderstanding. Thank the heavens. Otherwise, she would have to take the blame for being a green TB*TCH. How wronged would that be? With that thought, Luo Qingtong heaved a sigh of relief. At this time, on the continent where the Star Alliance was located, Star Alliance headquarters. Voila! The sound of tools shattering could be heard. Emo Zhuling stood in the middle of the room. Like a ferocious ghost, he frantically swept through the items around him. Only after destroying everything did he stop, panting heavily. All of you scram. A bunch of trash. You still haven't found the whereabouts of that bitch Luo Qingtong. What do I need you for? As she spoke, she kicked away a Star Alliance martial artist who was half kneeling in front of her. Miss, the True Spill Continent is currently under a very strict investigation. Elder Fong and the several hall masters are taking turns to firmly guard that area, not allowing anyone to disturb them, especially the area where the Luo family is located. We really have no other choice. A Star Alliance martial artist braced himself and said. Ever since Emo Zhuling woke up from his serious injuries, it was as if he had gone crazy. He wanted to deal with the True Spill Continent. But that wasn't a place they could afford to provoke. The miss was really crazy. After the Star Alliance martial artist's voice sounded, Emo Zhuling's blood-red eyes suddenly glared at him. Then he fiercely shouted. Scram! The crowd hurriedly retreated. After they left, a mass of black fog instantly appeared in front of Emo Zhuling. Humph, you still haven't found the whereabouts of Luo Qingtong? Chapter 2787. Emo Zhuling clenched her fists when she heard that voice. She turned her head expressionlessly and looked at the black fog that had appeared in mid-air. She said coldly, I've been looking for her all this time. Can't you see? You'd better find her as soon as possible. Otherwise, don't blame us for voiding our deal. Don't forget how you ended up with such a healthy body. Emo Zhuling's eyes were filled with extreme hatred when she heard the black fog's voice. She had been completely crippled by Sitamayer. Her entire body lay paralyzed on the bed like a pile of rotten meat. She could neither speak nor move. The pain all over her body was like ants gnawing at her heart. It caused her to struggle day and night in incomparable pain. No one could be like Emo Zhuling, whose bones, flesh, blood, and internal organs had all been smashed into a pile of mush. Only her body was left intact, and she was still alive. But she had survived. No matter what, she could not die. Emo Zhuling had begged her father, the leader of the Star Alliance, to kill her countless times with her eyes. The leader of the Star Alliance could not bear to see her suffer such torture. He was prepared to kill her so that she could be free. But in her body, where her heart was, there was a trace of power that Sitamayer had injected into her body. This trace of power allowed her to live for a long time. Unless she could destroy the power that had been injected into her heart, she would not die no matter what. Sitamayer was a strong cultivator in the Sky Martial State. How could the leader of the Star Alliance possibly destroy the power that she had left in Emo Zhuling's body? Thus, he could only be powerless. Just as Emo Zhuling's heart was filled with despair, the black fog appeared. It had asked her to deal with Luo Qingtong, so it had helped her recover her strength and mobility. Emo Zhuling had been helpless at that time. Because of her current situation, she hated Luo Qingtong to the extreme. Because they both adored the man who was as handsome as a god. Why was Luo Qingtong able to enjoy his meticulous protection? Not only was she safe and sound, but the True Spill Continent was also protected by that man unharmed. But he himself had to struggle in such a hellish state, and in such agony? Why? Emo Juling's heart was filled with hatred. She had no way to retaliate against Sitamayer, because of their status and strength. She simply could not deal with them. But she could deal with Luo Qingtong. Not only that, but the true Spill continent. She wanted Luo Qingtong to live a life worse than death. Moreover, she wanted her to suffer so much pain that she wished she was dead, because of those people from true Spill continent. She wanted to let Luo Qingtong have a taste of all the pain that she had experienced. She wanted Luo Qingtong to know her pain and endless hatred. At the same time, she wanted the man who loved Luo Qingtong and protected Luo Qingtong to know what pain and regret were. With such thoughts in mind, Emo Juling agreed to the deal with the Black Fog. She helped the Black Fog deal with Luo Qingtong and the true Spill continent, and the Black Fog helped her restore her strength and body, allowing her to recover from her serious injuries. And the Black Fog had done this. Hearing the Black Fog mention the deal between them, Emo Juling's heart was filled with shock, anger, and hatred. She absolutely did not want to return to that life that was worse than death. She wanted to live well, and then take revenge on Luo Qingtong. Chapter 2788. You don't need to use this to threaten me. My hatred for Luo Qingtong is no less than yours. I wish for her to live a life worse than death, but if I can't find her, what can I do? Emo Juling couldn't hide his hatred as he said, "Do you think I don't want to deal with her? But that man protects her like she's the apple of his eye." Within the Star Alliance, those elders and temple masters have also joined forces to oppose my father. I have no way to play any tricks within the true Spill continent. Otherwise, I would have already found her whereabouts. You're shouting so loudly here. Why don't you go investigate her whereabouts? With your strength, it shouldn't be a problem to find her whereabouts, right? Emo Juling's voice was ice cold. She didn't know the identity of this Black Fog that helped her, but it hated Luo Qingtong to the bone. It wished it could eat her bones and eat her flesh. In this case, if the other party couldn't find Luo Qingtong's whereabouts, then what qualifications did it have to shout in front of her? It had to be known that its strength was much higher than hers. If it couldn't find her, then how could it blame her for not doing a good job? As her words left her mouth, the Black Fog began to violently tumble. Emo Juling, I advise you not to anger me. Otherwise, although I won't immediately cancel the deal between us, I can still temporarily restore you to your previous state and let you savor the pain you felt at that time. With my strength, if I could directly deal with that slut Luo Qingtong, why would I need to find you? You'd better be smart. Otherwise, within the entire Star Alliance, I don't believe I can't find someone like you who can deal with Luo Qingtong. You'd better not force me. The voice that came from the Black Fog was incomparably cold. Obviously, when Emo Juling mentioned that it couldn't find Luo Qingtong and deal with her, it was very angry. Within the entire Star Alliance, as long as it paid enough, it could still find someone like Emo Juling who could be used by it. But such a person wasn't as useful as Emo Juling, who also hated Luo Qingtong. Because in order to take revenge on Luo Qingtong, Emo Juling could give up everything. But others might not be able to do so. Because of this, the Black Fog found Emo Juling. But this didn't mean she couldn't be replaced. If it was angry, it would still replace Emo Juling. At that time Emo Juling's and Emo. As soon as the Black Fog spoke, a trace of fear flashed across Emo Juling's eyes. The madness and hatred in her eyes lessened slightly. She calmed down a little and said, I didn't mean to provoke you, but I need time. I'm using you as an example to tell you that even someone as strong as you can't easily find out Luo Qingtong's whereabouts. It's even more impossible for me, so we still need to take it slow. She said that she would give in and compromise, but her eyes flashed with humiliation and hatred. One day, she would make everyone pay the price, including this Black Fog. How dare it threaten her? Emo Juling's success was shocking. Humph. The Black Fog snorted coldly, then said, You'd better hurry. Luo Qingtong, that woman is very strange. Chapter 2789. Her talent is extraordinary and her abilities are extraordinary. She can be called the best in the world. If someone like her wasn't born on a low-level continent, then who knows what degree she would have reached. You'd best not underestimate her. She hasn't appeared for so long. Perhaps it's because of that man. She's been taken to some place to cultivate, and at the same time, she's hiding from those people from Heaven Capital. In this case, you'd best be vigilant. Otherwise, when you see her again, she'll have surpassed your imagination. She'll have reached an unimaginable degree. As the black fog spoke, its voice became increasingly tense, as if it was trying to endure something. So you'd best find her as soon as possible. Otherwise, once she cultivates, we'll no longer be her match. Again? Hearing the black fog's words, Emo Zhuling instantly caught onto two different words. The black fog really did have a grudge against Luo Qingtong. Moreover, it was likely that the black fog had fought against Luo Qingtong before, and had suffered a loss under her hands. In other words, the black fog's previous strength might not have been so tyrannical. Otherwise, it wouldn't have suffered a loss under Luo Qingtong. After all, a person like Luo Qingtong was only someone from a low-level continent. If it weren't for that man with monstrous power, status, and strength, then what was Luo Qingtong? However, it was also possible that the black fog's opponent had been so miserably abused by Luo Qingtong because of that man. Now she purposely made Luo Qingtong sound so formidable. Was she trying to save some face? As Emo Zhuling thought this, his heart was filled with disdain. However, she didn't show it on her face. She carelessly said, "I know, but you don't need to worry. When I saw her, she had no strength at all. I thought she was a waste. But you said that her cultivation and strength were above the Saint realm. At that time, she should have temporarily lost her strength because of some changes in the true Spill continent. So, even if she can recover, it's impossible for her strength to increase by much during this period of time. Of course, even if her abilities are extraordinary, so what if her strength has increased? I'll just take it that she has advanced to the venerable realm. But so what? Our Star Alliance has so many experts. Moreover, isn't there also that young Master Lu Yu whom I recently got acquainted with?" When Emo Zhuling said this, he laughed joyfully. Young Master Lu Yu was the young master of an aristocratic family from the 7-star field, whom she had met by borrowing the ability of the black fog. It was said that the Lu family that he was from had a very prominent status in that star field. Not only that, but the ancestor of the Lu family was also related to a family from a 6-star region. Over the years, the two families had kept in touch. Emo Zhuling had already made her fall in love with him by borrowing the power of the black fog. Under such circumstances, did she still need to worry about Luo Qingtong's strength? Unless that man returned to true Spill continent. But in that case, she could still use the black fog to pass the news to Tiandu. At that time, that man would be under the control of Tiandu. In order to protect Luo Qingtong, he wouldn't have enough time to deal with Tiandu's people. How could he have time to care about her? Chapter 2790. Emo Zhuling's expression was ice-cold. She didn't care what kind of disaster this matter would bring to the Star Alliance. She only wanted to achieve her goal. Moreover, when she was seriously injured, the Star Alliance didn't care about her life or death, right? Elder Fong and the others even wanted her father to expel her from the Star Alliance. In this kind of situation, why should she care about the life or death of the Star Alliance? She wanted them all to die. At this time, Luo Qingtong, Ji Feiyu, and the others had already arrived at the Star Alliance's headquarters on the mainland. The entire mainland was like a huge city floating in the starry sky. This was specially built by the Star Alliance for their headquarters. They spent a lot of manpower and resources. When they saw Ji Feiyu and the others appear, and learned of their identities, the Star Alliance guards didn't dare to be negligent. They hurriedly welcomed them into the Star City. After Luo Qingtong entered the city like Star City mainland, she bid farewell to Ji Feiyu and the others. What a joke! If she didn't leave now, would she have to catch up with Emo Zhuling? She was afraid that the Star Alliance wouldn't be able to bear the scene of her and Emo Zhuling catching up. However, Luo Qingtong wasn't ready to fully recover her strength yet. Therefore, she didn't want to clash with the Star Alliance. Moreover, she had just made a mistake in confessing to Ji Feiyu and the others. Although it was clarified in the end, she still felt uncomfortable. Moreover, Ji Feiyu was Emo Zhuling's fiancé. It wasn't a good thing for her to get too close to him. What if that woman, Emo Zhuling, accused her of seducing her fiancé in order to get back at her? How wronged would she be? Luo Qingtong was determined not to take the blame for this green tea bitch. Therefore, the moment she entered Star City, she immediately bid farewell to Ji Feiyu and the others. She didn't even give them a chance to persuade her to stay. Ji Feiyu and the others couldn't persuade her to stay. In addition, Luo Qingtong was a young girl who was rescued by Ji Feiyu and the others midway. It was indeed inappropriate for her to follow them to meet the Star Alliance. At that time, the Star Alliance would think that Luo Qingtong wanted to rely on Ji Feiyu. Not only would it be bad for her reputation, it would also be disrespectful to the Star Alliance. After all, Ji Feiyu was here to propose marriage. Therefore, Ji Feiyu and the others did not chase after them. Humph. Seeing Luo Qingtong's figure leave, Qin Xiong coldly snorted. His eyes revealed an extremely cold and ruthless expression. He originally thought that Luo Qingtong would desperately cling onto the young master in order to avoid his revenge. He didn't expect her to actually leave. He originally wanted to let the Star Alliance deal with her, but now it seemed that there was no need for that. As he thought this, he was about to order his men to secretly follow them. However, he was stopped by Ji Feiyu's deep voice. "Commander Qin, I seem to feel that something is wrong here. You and your men, immediately come and protect me. Don't miss out on any of the places around me. If anything happens to me, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear the consequences." As he spoke, he raised his hand and ordered Sueyu and the others to move aside. He ordered Qin Xiong and the others to guard around his carriage. This action was naturally to prevent Qin Xiong and the others from chasing after Luo Qingtong. This would allow the young girl to leave this place as soon as possible. Chapter 2791. When his voice rang out, Qin Xiong and the rest immediately paused. Especially those guards who had just received Qin Xiong's order and were about to leave. When they heard Ji Feiyu's voice, they didn't dare to leave. After all, leaving one's post without permission was a serious crime. If something happened to the young master at this time, their entire family wouldn't be able to pay with their lives. A trace of anger flashed in Qin Xiong's eyes. He looked in the direction of Ji Feiyu and said angrily, "The young master is kind. He cares so much about a strange girl." Speaking of this, he gritted his teeth and sneered. "If I didn't know that the young master's fiancée is the young miss of the Star Alliance, I would have thought that Luo Shaoqi was our future young madam. But young master, don't let this subordinate talk too much," he said coldly and sarcastically. "The young master's body is weak and can't cultivate. Although the identity of the young miss of the Star Alliance isn't that great, she is still barely worthy of the young master. But other people might not be. The young master has taken a fancy to that Luo Shaoqi. It's okay to play with her. Don't take it seriously. Otherwise, if you bring her back to the family Ji and find out what kind of lowly identity she has, won't you be ridiculed? After all, the young master's matter is enough to make the family Ji a laughingstock. Don't you think so, young master?" Qin Xiong sneered and his words were aggressive. Every word of his actually stepped on Ji Feiyu's sore spot. Who didn't know that the son of the family Ji's first wife was a cripple who couldn't cultivate? The family Ji was ridiculed because of this. And this time, if Ji Feiyu's strength wasn't that weak, how could he, as the son of the family Ji's first wife, be pushed out to marry a girl from the 9-star domain? She was called the young miss of the Star Alliance, but her identity as the young miss of the Star Alliance might not even be as high as the first wife's daughter of a small family on their side. Marrying such a person would be a humiliation. On the other hand, Ji Feiyu was so pitiful and laughable that he actually wanted to protect an unknown girl. He was simply overestimating himself. Hearing Qin Xiong's words, Ji Feiyu's face instantly turned pale. His hands tightly grasped the patterns on his sleeves. He used all of his self-control to prevent himself from losing his composure in front of everyone. Sui Yu and the others were already extremely furious. How dare you? Qin Xiong, how dare you disrespect the young master? I'm just advising young master. What's wrong? Qin Xiong snorted coldly and arrogantly raised his head. He didn't put Sui Yu and the others in his eyes at all. There was no weakness in his words at all. What could Sui Yu and the others do to him? Even if the young master didn't have a reason to deal with him, with just his strength, what kind of threat could he pose to him? Thinking of this, Qin Xiong immediately sneered and waved his hand. For the safety of the young master, that Luo Shaoqi must be thoroughly investigated. Otherwise, why would young master feel uncomfortable after she left? His words sounded. In an instant, Sui Yu and the others were shocked and angry. He was actually going to use the young master's words to deal with Luo Qingtong, and then attack her. How could this be? You Qin Xiong, how dare you? They shouted angrily. Why wouldn't I dare? Qin Xiong sneered. I'm doing this for the young master. As he spoke, he waved his hand and ordered all the people around him to chase after Luo Qingtong. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.